Hey friends, we're in Tomsk and it's charmingly pretty here, but you really have to watch your step. I can't look into the camera. If you get distracted for a second, you might break something. Look at that woman in high-heeled boots trying to cross these little snow hills. She's barely managing. I thought I'd finally go for a run here in Tomsk. Turns out, probably not.
Surprisingly, it looks completely neglected. I expected more from Tomsk. You hear so much about it.
It's beautiful here. Look, see these houses? Though, yeah, some get burned down, some just collapse on their own. But Tomsk is famous for its wooden architecture. Whole streets of it. And the houses can be amazing. There's a really cool program here. You can buy a building for 1 ruble and restore it. If you restore it properly, they give you 49 years of use. It's a great program that helps save historic wooden buildings no one else is taking care of. And unlike other cities, Tomsk doesn't give out architectural monuments. They give out regular old wooden housing. Look, behind me is one of the houses restored through this program. There are only 4 of them so far, but you can see how great it turned out. A fresh, elegant building. But most places like this are in horrible shape. Half rotten, collapsing, sometimes burned down. Many are already lost. But some can still be saved. How much does it cost to restore one?
Around $99,000.
Right, around 99,000. It's around $99,000.
So for about 99,000, someone gets a big solid house in the center?
Exactly.
If it costs $99,000 to $124,000, it pays off in 8 to 9 years. After that, it's pure profit.
Unfortunately, there aren't many of them. The program has strict requirements. You can't just fix the place however you want. You have to get the project approved by a bunch of agencies. And the restoration has to be high quality. And after you restore the house, you're responsible for maintaining it. There are a lot of beautiful wooden houses here.
It's cool, but everyone talks about them. So you imagine Tomsk as this charming place. Like some little Finnish town, and yeah, not quite.
The military prosecutor's office. It appeared out of nowhere. Oh, wow. We stumbled on this odd building. It looks half modern, but you can tell there used to be some kind of historic building here, and someone decided to upgrade it. Well, they turned it into complete crap. Honestly, there are very few good examples. Anywhere in the world where a historic building is rebuilt with modern elements and still looks decent. I always compare it to a hunter who shoots an animal and hangs the head on the wall like a trophy. And that's basically what happened here. They destroyed the building and hung up the trophy. Like, look, we probably killed the historic building that used to stand here. Friends, welcome to Paris. This lovely neighborhood is called Paris. And I think the main question here is, why is it called Paris? Because I don't see anything even remotely Paris-like. Excuse me, can I ask you something? Why is this neighborhood called Paris?
Sorry?
Isn't this area called Paris?
Yeah.
We're tourists. Don't take it the wrong way.
Oh, well, you'd better ask him.
So why is this neighborhood called Paris?
It's because there's Upper Paris and Lower Paris.
Yep, upper and lower.
And which one's this? Why Paris, though? You do realize this place has absolutely nothing in common with Paris, right?
Of course not.
So why is it Paris?
Probably just because it's Paris. Because if it were called Russia in Russian, then it wouldn't be called Paris.
So you're Parisians?
Well, naturally. Well, he's Parisian. We're just visiting.
And so you're tourists too? Came to see Paris?
No, I've moved here. Been living here 4 years. We used to have London here too. And Rome. That was somewhere over there.
You guys live in style here, I'll give you that.
There's even a Great Wall of China over there. Well, sort of.
Got it, thanks.
You're all good.
Do you have an Eiffel Tower here?
The Eiffel Tower? Easy, we'll find it. There it is.
Champs-Élysées. I have no idea why. Maybe that power line tower looks a bit like the Eiffel Tower.
I thought that too.
People here are giving us weird looks because they can't figure out why we're smiling. This is not the kind of neighborhood where you smile, because there are no sidewalks. Anyway, friends, we're in Paris. So, look, we're walking through the famous Parisian districts. This is the heart of Paris, the intersection of Lev Tolstoy and Lebedev streets. And what do we have? Drug ads. An icy snow mound. Somebody's hung their shoes on a tree. Lots of local landmarks. Boarded up windows, if anyone's interested. A rusty fire escape. Random chunks of ice on the ground. A pile of trash. And the highlight, a satellite dish mounted on a tree. Where else are you going to see that? Seriously, there's a satellite dish on a tree. There's also some rebar. Can I touch this? It's just a piece of rebar sticking into the snow. Maybe it's a grounding system or something. Who knows? But very mysterious. This neighborhood really is full of sights. Look, they actually ran wiring up the tree for that satellite dish. And just stuck the dish right on it. Tell me, please, why is this neighborhood called Paris? We're tourists. We came here thinking it was Paris, but it doesn't exactly look like Paris.
In Paris, all the buildings look the same.
And here?
And in Paris, like here, they're all the same color too.
Oh,
Houses in Paris are gray.
perfect explanation. Thank you. No more questions. Have a good day.
Good luck.
So yeah, friends, there are very interesting people here in Paris. I get the feeling the neighborhood was bombed yesterday or something. See, some workers came to fix a manhole. And apparently they did. They poured concrete in, finished it, and left. And all the trash, they just dumped it here. Why haul it away? Here you've got rebar chunks of concrete, various bits of junk lying around. Sure, let it all stay.
The new manhole cover doesn't look quite right.
Of course, on this new manhole cover, since you need a crane to lift the concrete slab, they've left these hooks sticking out. So you can lift it and set it in place. But nobody cares. A great example of how we treat our urban environment. This is literally right by a residential building, right by the entrance. Kids come out here, people walk through here, and no one gives a damn. I'm sure if you asked the residents, they wouldn't care at all. They'd say, well, at least they fixed something here. So what, that they left the trash? Friends, we found a true Parisian.
I wasn't born here, but yeah.
Why is this neighborhood called Paris?
There used to be a cafe here called Paris. All the big local decisions were made there.
And the neighborhood itself, is it okay?
Yeah, it's fine. Not scary to walk around at night, even late in the evening. That's a plus.
And Tomsk in general, how is it?
Tomsk? Yeah.
Is it a good city?
Yeah, it's a student city, so it works for me.
Tomsk has a tram, but the tram is in awful condition. Old warped rails, switches you have to flip by hand, and really old cars. So of course the tram is not exactly convenient. Look at the state of these tracks. There's like a 5-centimeter gap between them. I honestly don't understand how the trams don't derail. It's a mess. All the rails are bent, so when the tram moves, it rattles like crazy. It's super loud, unstable. And even if you buy nice new trams, they'll still shake and sway on this. It'll still feel awful because the rails are worn out and no one's doing anything about it. Friends, keep in mind, this is supposed to be a tram stop. The tram just pulled in and people are stepping straight onto ice into a snowdrift. There was an old lady in front of us who barely made it out. I've never seen anything like it. People literally get dropped off into icy piles of snow. I'm sure people in Tomsk watching this are thinking, here come two spoiled Moscow boys who've never seen crooked rails. Do you still think you can only use VPN in Russia or China? Not really. VPNs can come in handy anywhere. Say when you want to safely use free Wi-Fi at a cafe or airport, a VPN encrypts your data so that no one can intercept it. Or maybe you want to watch your favorite Netflix show that's only available in the US. A VPN changes your virtual location so you can access it. And don't forget about work. Many companies require VPN access for internal systems connection. In general, wherever you are, a VPN is about safety, comfort, and freedom. To browse the internet without restrictions or unnecessary stress, try VPN Liberty. It's incredibly easy to use. All you need is add your key and connect. The VPN runs smoothly, even with torrents, no limits there. And if anything's unclear, support is available 24/7. VPN Liberty operates through 400 servers and has been successfully bypassing censorship for a year and a half. Even in countries with strict internet control like Iran, Turkmenistan, China, and regions of the North Caucasus. Lately, the service has grown from 0 to 68,000 users, all without sponsors. And as always, I've got the best deal for my dear viewers. The first 30 days are free. Just follow the link in the description, activate the bot, and enjoy a free and secure internet experience. Are you waiting for the tram?
Yay!
Great. This is a stop, right? Looks like a stop.
Do you like it?
Okay, there's a car parked here, a snowdrift here, another car over there, and people call this a stop. You sure it's a stop?
Yep.
Really? There isn't even a sign. Wait, how did you even figure out this is a stop?
Those who live here know it.
Some kind of secret local knowledge? If I didn't live here, how would I know?
You'd figure it out. There'd be people here.
And so you just assume the stop is here? Oh, look, it just drove past. See? You were waiting here for nothing? I told you there's no stop here. Even the tram doesn't know this is a stop.
It's a tram from Moscow, that's why.
Hold on, there really isn't a single sign here. Not one. Even the tram driver has no idea where the stop is supposed to be. It's just a road and a terrible roadside shoulder. People stand around, the tram stops, and then everyone sprints toward it.
It's a Moscow tram. How is it supposed to know where the stop is?
This is wild. On the opposite side, there's at least some kind of stop, a bench, and a little shelter.
Yep, it's good.
It's not great. I mean, there's no schedule, no sign, nothing.
As normal as things get in Tomsk.
Yeah, by Tomsk standards, it's a luxurious palace of a stop.
What's sad about the tram is that all the important groundwork is already done. There's a dedicated tram street, there's land for it, nothing needs to be taken from drivers, nothing needs to be demolished. Everything is ready. And yet, the tram system has completely fallen apart. Nobody uses it. It crawls along because the rails are all warped. So much potential is being thrown away. It's just stupidity, incompetence, a kind of urban planning impotence. The authorities can't handle the simplest task, laying straight tram tracks.
Our taxi driver was telling us how amazing it'll all be now that Tomsk has super modern gas-powered buses. It's these little mini-buses. Let me remind you again what they were originally invented for. Oh, look, there goes one. Yes, they run on gas now, these modern mini-buses. Well, they were invented to transport potatoes and coffins between villages. They're built with high ground clearance, big wheels, tons of off-road capability, so they can plow through fields. They should not exist inside a city. And if anyone thinks these are acceptable as public transport, I suggest you try pushing a baby stroller onto one. End of discussion. All right, friends, important announcement. Horses and carts are officially banned from entering the Tomsk Regional Administration. And if you didn't get the message the first time, look, there's another sign. So if you've come in from the village to complain to the governor, forget it. Anyway, friends, we're now at the famous embankment that was recently opened. The whole city has been buzzing about it because, according to residents, it's considered one of the most expensive projects around. Depending on whom you ask, it costs either $12 million or $30 million. Local officials proudly claim it's practically the most beautiful waterfront in all of Siberia. So what do we see here? We see a giant granite monument to poor planning and wasteful spending. Sure, the money came from Gazprom, not the city. But the story is exactly the same as in Tyumen. People think that if you build something flashy, cover everything in granite, make it look fancy, then it must be good, and we should all applaud. But let's actually think about what a waterfront is supposed to be. What a modern public space is, why it exists. A good public space has functions. It offers people different things. You can relax, do sports, interact with nature, let kids play. There are different zones for people who are just passing through, for people walking quietly with children, for people who want to be active or loud. A proper public space works for everyone. It gives people options. So let's look at what we've got here in the center of Tomsk. We literally have nothing except an amphitheater. That's it. The one thing they built is an amphitheater. There's absolutely nothing else here.
This is basically a square for protests. If you wanted to hold a rally here...
Right. There are no benches here. No cozy shady corner. You can't come here with a child. It's just stairs everywhere. And no ramps, so you can't even get down. There is literally nothing else. And right now there isn't a single person around. We're filming this and it's empty. Even on the Tom River embankment, which is like 200 meters from here, people still walk even though there's nothing there either. But at least there's a river, it's pretty. Here you can't even see the river. They managed to build a riverfront where you don't see the river. If you're short, look, I'm crouching now. You walk, walk, walk. And if you're small or a kid, you won't see the river at all.
Not even a child, but a short person.
Yeah, you'll be walking like, where am I? What is this?
What if you go on tiptoes?
Sure, tiptoes. The river's over there. Oh, wow. So they managed to spend an insane amount of money to build a completely useless, dead public space that's just unpleasant to be in. Unfortunately, it's a classic case of a public space being designed by literally anyone except an architect. I'm sure the team behind this project was some official in charge of construction, some director of a granite selling company, maybe some Gazprom financiers who were distributing the millions. Basically anyone. And if you look at this, I guarantee there wasn't a single architect involved. They just forgot to invite one to design the embankment. Happens, I guess. On one hand, they used super expensive materials. You can see they had an embarrassing amount of money. It's like giving a monkey an iPhone. And then they need to make a corner here, so they go buy a metal bracket at the local market, screw it on. They need to install a lamp, but of course they can't make it flush with the sidewalk, so they build a little curb around it and add some other nonsense. Everything is already cracked, falling apart. And then the door, this just a plain technical door, the kind of thing you'd install in a warehouse. And they put this on a waterfront they spent millions on. Apparently this was the best door they could imagine.
And look, it's right at the entrance. A person walks in from the street, from the main bridge.
Yeah, here we are crossing.
And the first thing they see is this door.
It's a toilet. Think it works? Of course not. The toilet is out of order. Apparently they were short 1 more million to get the toilet running. You don't need to spend a fortune on granite. If they had made this out of concrete, wood, or any cheaper materials, nothing fundamentally would have changed. They could have made this space way more interesting with inexpensive materials, saved a ton of money, and actually created a cool spot where people would come, spend time, and genuinely enjoy it. What's funny is that when they were commissioning this embankment, some official proudly talked about how complex all the engineering solutions were here, especially the lawn. They had to build it so it wouldn't slide. Well, looks like the lawn didn't get the memo from the mayor, didn't appreciate the complex engineering, and slid anyway. We came here in winter, and you can see they don't even clean it. No maintenance, nothing. There's snow everywhere, and this random icy patch that serves zero purpose. They don't clear it because no one needs it. And to the residents of Tomsk who'll say, well, at least they built something, could have been nothing. People like it, it's better than before. You have to understand, this is a textbook example of missed opportunities. For this money, they could have built 5 embankments, not out of granite, but out of other materials, and they would have been far better. But because no one complains about this, this is what we get, and everyone pretends to be happy. We're in the city center, there are icy sidewalks, and a woman walking with a child. Honestly, it's scary.
She's trained by now.
Trained? Sure, but no matter how trained you are, you can still slip. Look at these dirty courtyards. Nothing has been cleaned here at all. There's trash everywhere, cars everywhere, ice from the very first step. This isn't some back alley. This is the front entrance to the building, and all the courtyards are like this. I don't understand how people walk here. It hasn't been cleaned all winter. You look at the playground sign, and you almost want to laugh. That's what their smile looks like. They painted a sign, "Watch out for children." But honestly, they should have painted, "Danger, it's a disaster." Everything is icy, blocked with cars, and dangerous. There isn't a single safe spot where I'd let my kid play. Rusty welded stair railings, snowbanks full of cigarette butts, a super dangerous bus stop, an open dumpster with pigeons eating from it. So instead of "Watch out for children," the sign should say, "Watch out for the disaster." If the road isn't cleared, imagine the mayor needing to escape angry residents quickly. He wouldn't even be able to drive off. On our taxi ride from the airport, our driver shared his theory on Russian longevity. He mentioned that Russian pensioners don't go out as much as European ones, they just sit at home, which means catching less diseases. That's why, according to him, they live longer. And think about why our pensioners can't walk far from home. It's not because they love sitting inside all day. It's because the urban environment is so inaccessible that if you're frail or elderly, you simply can't go anywhere. There are no benches, the crosswalks are inconvenient. Stairs everywhere, barriers everywhere, no accessible routes. And this makes the city inaccessible, especially for older people, so they stay at home. Same with people with disabilities. You won't see nearly as many wheelchair users here as in Europe or the US, not because they don't exist, but because in Russia they can't live a full, active life, and there's nothing good about that. That's not some kind of achievement. It's bad and it needs to be fixed. The city should be accessible and fair. Hello?
Hello?
Tell me, please, how do you walk on these icy streets?
Well, that's how I walk.
You don't fall?
Not yet, no.
Isn't it dangerous here?
No, don't worry.
So overall it's fine?
Well, we're used to it.
I see.
This isn't Moscow.
That's the main problem. She's the typical grandmother who says everything is fine.
She's a good, reasonable grandmother.
She doesn't complain. She says everything is fine, we're used to it. And that's the main problem. People aren't demanding. When people aren't demanding, the authorities will be the last to do anything. Because everyone is used to it, everyone thinks puddles are because it's spring, ice and snow are because it's winter, and that you don't need to do anything about it. There are plenty of cities with a climate much worse than Tomsk, and they clean everything properly there, and there's nothing supernatural about it. But here, there are no clean sidewalks, no normal bus stops, no normal trams. This is how it shouldn't be. Here we have some stairs. And by the way, it's funny. Look, at first, on the first flight, they're like, "We'll think about accessibility. We'll build a ramp. We care about people with limited mobility. What if a disabled person or someone with a stroller might want to pass?" So they build a ramp here, everything's fine. But further on, there's no ramp, so why did they build the ramp like this?
Maybe to enter this store?
That's strange.
It's just the terrain. It's not like an underpass or a proper ramp. It's the terrain, but they built stairs.
It's a slope, but let me switch the camera. But tell me, Max, why are there no steps for cars? Cars manage to drive on this slope somehow, and they drive just fine. But for people, they built stairs. There is no terrain in the world that you can't handle properly if you pay an architect at least a little bit. All these problems can be solved. The slope here isn't even that steep. They just made up nonsense instead of making it level with the road. And judging by the amount of granite, Gazprom or someone like that must have sponsored it. Here you can clearly see an elderly woman barely walking up these steps. Coats of arms, chrome handrails, everything looks fancy but is inconvenient. For some reason, they put fences here. The main problem is that there's a fence. That's a sign something is wrong in the city. Fences are the first sign of poor street design. For example, if the city authorities are afraid that people in the city center might accidentally step into the road and get hit by cars, then they need to reduce vehicle speeds, calm the traffic, so that danger doesn't exist. The fence doesn't protect pedestrians on the sidewalk. Some people think that a fence protects pedestrians in case of an accident. Of course, it doesn't protect anyone. But drivers, seeing the fence, start driving less carefully because it feels like a highway to them. It's fenced off on both sides, no sidewalks, no pedestrians, so they drive carelessly. And if you look at the centers of other cities, their main streets, even in Russia, imagine Tverskaya or Nevsky Prospect, of course, there are no fences and there's no problem. Plus, fences interfere with proper cleaning, there's dust and dirt under them. Many people asked us what we think about these street lights. What can we think? The lights themselves are, well, acceptable. It's not the worst possible solution. What's unclear is why they installed them twice as densely as needed. Please note, friends, that Lenin Avenue here has no fences and nothing terrible is happening. It's much nicer here without the fences. There isn't a forest of poles and streetlights. Overall, it's a really cool street. It's 19th century architecture. Cohesive, beautiful buildings. It's actually pleasant to walk along this street. People warned us there would be some nightmare with ads or whatever. But in reality, it's not that bad. Of course, a stricter design code should be introduced so that signs like these wouldn't appear. And it would be good to calm the traffic. You could make pedestrian safety islands, and in general, on streets like this, you could even lay cobblestones.
Yes, this street could come back to life. And it's not difficult. There are no irreversible problems here.
And of course, it's unacceptable what they're doing to the historic buildings. You see, these are architectural monuments, and they're putting plastic banners everywhere. I mean, you'd think a bank would at least care. Look, this is a cultural heritage site of regional significance, 1896. An old Art Nouveau building, apparently built at the beginning of the century. And surprisingly, look, the original door is still here. That's pretty rare these days. Both the doors and these windows. Look, see these side windows? In the past, a proper architect, and really both then and now, always treated windows and doors as part of the architecture of the building. They were designed by the architect, and the door is a very important element. Because it's one of the few parts of the building we interact with every day. We touch the handle, we open it, we see it up close. Unlike most architectural elements, we're constantly in contact with it. That's why doors and windows were always given so much attention. Unfortunately, today, people think doors and windows are some nonsense you can just replace with a plastic blank, some completely soulless garbage. And supposedly, what does it matter? But it matters a lot. Look at this door, or this window. This is an amazing window that's been here since the building was built. And here, they put in plastic windows, and thus ended the proud history of some architectural details of this building. You can't do this. You have to be very careful with windows and doors. In many countries, there's a law. If you own an apartment and want to replace a window, you cannot install a plastic one. If for some reason the original is lost, you have to make an identical replica. You order a wooden window from a workshop made according to old drawings and sketches matching the original exactly. The same applies to handles, fittings, everything. Because again, windows and doors are an important part of the building's architecture. You can't just swap them out like that. Now, an important point. We're walking past a new building. I want to show you what the facade looks like. Look, this is the facade of the new building. We're walking here, and it's just a gray wall, a wall that, I don't know, looks like something they could have used to execute enemies of the people 100 years ago. That's what it looked like. Yet this is supposedly a residential building they built here. Not a prison, not an industrial facility, a residential house, and this is its facade. This is the zone we interact with, because a person usually sees only the first 3 meters of a facade. We don't look up, we look ahead or under our feet, and this is what we see, what the camera is showing now. That's what falls into a person's field of vision, and we're just walking along a dull gray wall. That's why it's important to have windows and to see life through them. That's also why mirrored windows or completely blackout windows are not recommended, so that you can actually see what's happening behind them. By the way, there's another interesting point. In some countries, people seek maximum privacy. They shut themselves in completely, closed windows, fences everywhere. And in others, houses are as open as possible. This often has to do with religion. For example, in Islam, in cities and countries with many Muslims, you see solid walls, closed windows, and life focused inward around a courtyard. People value privacy very highly. This comes from religious customs. For example, in some cultures, as you know, a woman cannot show herself to strangers. She has to hide herself. But in some Protestant countries in Europe, it's the complete opposite. They often don't even have curtains on their windows. Because Protestants believe they have nothing to hide, and that an honest person wouldn't hang curtains at all. And if someone suddenly puts up a fence there, people immediately get suspicious. It's very unusual for someone from here who sees that for the first time. But often these things come directly from religious customs and rules. I thought this was some kind of prison. There's barbed wire, all this security. But no, it's a consulting center. They've set it up and guarded it like an actual high-security facility. Just look at these doors. Max and I were walking along Sovetskaya Street, and honestly, it looks quite nice. You still find some wooden houses here. There are tram tracks, no heavy car traffic. It's calm and cozy. We're walking, talking about how much potential the street has. Then we look at old photos, and it turns out there wasn't even a road here before. The road was added later, and before that, there were trees growing right where the asphalt is now. So the street used to be even better, and somehow they managed to make it worse. And then, of course, they decided to prune the trees here, meaning they just left stumps. I have no idea why. People often say trees are pruned so a branch doesn't fall and hit someone. But these were young trees. Why on earth would they prune them at all? Why did they turn these trees into stumps? There used to be a tree here that was green, beautiful. Who exactly could this branch have killed? A raccoon, maybe. If a raccoon ran past, the branch wouldn't kill it. And friends, if you think open manholes are some kind of unique Tomsk phenomenon, no, they're not. This is Lebedev Street, one of the central streets. Here's a tram stop. Beautiful buildings, shops, people walking around. And right here, there's another open manhole, covered with a couple of boards. You have to understand, this is the road to hell. Friends, this was literally a portal to hell. And it's just left open. Nobody in Tomsk cares. If someone falls in, everyone will be surprised. And the worst part is that if, God forbid, a child falls in, most Russian comments will be like, the mother is stupid. The parents are idiots. It's their own fault. How could they not watch the kid? But streets must be safe. An open manhole is simply unacceptable. In America, if there was an open manhole there, and someone merely tripped on it, they'd sue the company responsible for millions of dollars. Because it's a real life-threatening hazard. And there, people pay for safety in dollars. In Russia, nobody cares. If someone in Russia breaks a leg or falls in and gets injured, they won't get compensation or money for treatment, or even symbolic damages. Nothing. That's why people in Russia treat street conditions with complete indifference.
If this were on the roadway, drivers would say, "Oh, an open manhole. I'll hit it with my tire."
But if it's here, nobody cares.
Yes, nobody cares.
People here seem to believe pedestrians are superheroes. They can overcome anything. Jump over manholes, obstacles. On an icy sidewalk, they'll do a triple somersault and just keep going. It's unbelievable. We're walking and there are no cars passing us, and we're walking on the road. Why are we walking on the road? Because there's no sidewalk. Look, no sidewalk on the right, no sidewalk on the left. So we're walking on the road.
I read a study when I was working on road safety about how to reduce traffic accidents in developing countries. And the #1 recommendation, the top one, was to build sidewalks. I thought, how is that even possible? Where would sidewalks not exist?
In Tomsk, in Tomsk.
But the study literally says that once you build sidewalks, the number of accidents drops dramatically. I thought, wow, what an innovative idea, sidewalks. But no, they really don't exist in many developing countries. And in Tomsk.
I like comparing many underdeveloped countries and Tomsk. If there wasn't snow here, you'd think we'd arrived in India. We're now in an area called the Southern Gates. It's on the outskirts of Tomsk. And what's amazing is that the whole area is basically built in an open field, and the entire district is made up of high-rise apartment blocks. There is absolutely no reason to build high-rises here. There's so much land around Tomsk, and land right here as well. This isn't Singapore or Hong Kong, this isn't Manhattan. Those places are financial centers where every square meter costs a fortune, and everyone is willing to squeeze together and build higher and higher. If you look at European or American cities, many people think America is all skyscrapers. But skyscrapers exist only downtown. That's the business district, which must be compact. But the rest of America, even New York, is low-rise. Neighborhoods are 3 to 4 stories high. If you look at the average building height, it's always low. And the farther from the center you go, the lower the buildings get. No one today would think of building giant high-rise blocks in a European or American city. But in Tomsk, it's totally normal. They took a completely empty field and built this eyesore for no understandable reason.
I like the layout. The fact that the kindergartens and schools are nearby, that part is nice.
The buildings look nice too, bright and cheerful.
The paint fades quickly.
Orange, well, you can repaint it. It's funny. When you ask people why they like this neighborhood, they name basic things that you'd assume should exist by default. There's a school, there's a kindergarten, there are shops. These things should be there. All these people could just as easily live in normal mid-rise buildings. The buildings would simply be placed a bit closer together. And that would be more efficient. There wouldn't be these vast gaps between buildings. You could have built a much denser neighborhood like what you see in the center of any city. There's nothing unusual about block-style development in Russia. Take the center of any Russian city built before the revolution, you'll see dense blocks, little shops, cafes, and streets that are pleasant to walk along. But for some reason, we abandoned that. We started building these micro-districts where land is used incredibly inefficiently. And here's the most important point, friends, one that people forget or don't even think about: maintenance. People always think about how much it costs to build a project, a neighborhood, a street, a park, cut the ribbon, and that's it. After that, it's assumed it will somehow take care of itself. No one thinks about maintenance, but maintenance is much more important than the initial construction. You can build something slightly more expensive up front and then save massively on ongoing upkeep. Good design allows a park, courtyard, or public space to be maintained far more efficiently later on. But this whole mess here, this clutter shows that no one thought ahead. And what is the result? Someone has to take care of all these fences. They need to be painted, repaired, maintained. There's all this space being used completely inefficiently. Instead of just thinking for a moment and doing things properly, most of the nonsense in Tomsk can be explained not by too much money, but in fact the opposite. The big problem is that our cities are very poor. Wait, the fence ended. Friends, the fence has ended. We now bring you breaking news. Reporting live from the Southern Gates district in the city of Tomsk. There used to be a fence here, there was protection, security, order, and suddenly the fence just stops. It just stops and that's it. Over there, it's wonderful. A beautiful courtyard, everything is nice, safe, quiet. And look at the horror that happens when the fence disappears. Right at this dividing line, decay, depression, nightmare, chaos. Look how unlucky the residents of this entrance are. They don't have a fence under their windows. The same thing applies to architecture and housing in general. A competent architect, when designing buildings, thinks about how to position them, studies the wind patterns, and considers what materials to build them from. Why, for example, are houses in Scandinavia often built out of wood? Because building with local materials is always cheaper. And often these houses end up being more energy efficient, meaning later on you can save money on maintenance. But unfortunately in Russia, when it comes to architecture and urban planning, no one ever thinks about maintenance, and that's a big mistake. Again, you could save a lot of money. And one last example, as you walk through these districts, just pay attention to how many empty lots there are. And all of them require upkeep. Someone has to mow the grass, someone has to clean, someone has to look after it somehow. So the question is why? Why couldn't the yard have been designed from the start so that all of its space was used effectively? Yes, it really is surprising how much the environment has degraded over the last few decades and how people have been convinced that this is normal. People buying apartments here are told that this is normal modern housing, that this is how one is supposed to live. Meanwhile, outside of Russia, well, and outside of the other post-Soviet states, nothing like this is built anywhere. Not in Europe, not in Asia. Even in China. Chinese build great high-rises, even the housing for the very poorest groups, for resettled peasants, looks much better than all of this. This is the Cheremoshniki district. This district is considered one of the worst in Tomsk. I almost tripped and fell. Trolley buses go one after another. Trolley buses, amazing. The Cheremoshniki trolley bus, right? They're not doing any proper pruning here. They're doing some nonsense they call pruning. Okay, they planted poplars. Now they've realized poplars aren't great. They grow fast. Their branches are brittle. Fine, whatever. Why not plant normal trees? Birches are beautiful. Plant birches and let them grow. What is this bizarre mutilation of trees they call pruning? What do people say about Cheremoshniki? You'd better bring black prayer beads with you and a knuckle duster too. There was a writer who published a book in 1906 called Tomsk Slums. This is exactly where the Tomsk railway line used to end. This is the dangerous part of the district. There used to be many drug addicts here, and there were Roma who sold drugs. So naturally, a lot of addicts used to hang around here. It used to be a very dangerous area. I don't know how dangerous it is now. It seems to me that this kind of street crime is rare in Russia today. Well, certainly nothing like in Latin America or some African countries. There's a funny little truck standing here. Nevertheless, the legends about this area are very intriguing. And now there are just fishing rods, some old crooked wooden houses, some barracks-style apartments, car washes. Everything here is, of course, quite depressing. It really does look like a drug addict could appear from anywhere. Victory Day banners. On the roof, you probably can't see it, there's a huge Victory Day banner. And someone, apparently not a very wealthy person, has used this banner to cover their leaking roof. This, by the way, is the main problem with all this Victory Day hysteria. Everyone loves pounding their chests and talking, lest we forget how proud we are, how much we respect our elders. And then those same elders take that banner and patch their roof with it so it won't leak. It would be much better if instead of all the tanks, the parades, and all the chest thumping, they simply restored or repaired a couple of streets and made the city comfortable. It would be nice, for example, to think about how these veterans, the ones who are still alive, actually move around our cities. This is disrespectful to veterans. It's disrespectful to people when you don't have a single clean sidewalk. We've been walking for an hour and we haven't seen a single decent sidewalk. I haven't been able to relax for even a second in the past hour. It would be far more important that on some anniversary, I don't know, maybe the 100th anniversary of victory or whatever, the mayor would come out and say, "Friends, instead of fireworks, instead of a parade, we took that money and simply cleaned up the city. We leveled the sidewalks and cleaned them. We created a barrier-free environment, bought a low-floor tram, and built a proper boarding platform so that you, our dear veterans, and your children and grandchildren no longer have to experience pain and humiliation walking around our cities." We are now, friends, in a residential neighborhood, meaning this is not... Oh, there's a man walking with a cart. This fully grown man, you can see it's not easy for him to walk. He'll probably have to walk on the road because the sidewalk is impossible to walk on. So yes, we're in a residential neighborhood. And right now, there is no construction happening here. There are no fences, no tape, no information boards, no workers. Nothing out of the ordinary is going on. Yet the environment is so awful that it's hard to imagine what country, what city this could even be. For example, here we have an open manhole. This is what counts as a traffic calming measure. There's no need to put fences along the road. First of all, it's unclear where the sidewalk ends and the road begins. Second, because the roads aren't continuous, cars drive very slowly. And even if someone suddenly ran out onto the road, they probably wouldn't be seriously harmed. It's all very sad. Roads shouldn't force people to reduce speed to 10 kilometers an hour just to pass over obstacles. And people already avoid going outside unless absolutely necessary. One important thing to pay attention to, all the garages and everything around them. There's a good way to find out what people actually need. When we talk about landscaping, how do we even understand what people want, what good yard landscaping should look like? Despite the fact that the houses here are quite simple and the people living here aren't wealthy, and it's clear these courtyards probably haven't been improved in the past 100 years, the residents themselves have created a very pleasant space. Look right here on both sides. You won't find anything like this in any new developments. Look, they've built a little gazebo here, nothing fancy, just made out of whatever materials they could find. There's a grill here. There are some benches over there. They even have a pond. It turned into such a cool, cozy place, and the neighboring house right here next to it is behind a fence. They fenced off their entire area. They also have a barbecue under a canopy. They have a table, they have a bench, and they've also arranged a nice little corner for themselves under a tree. So here you've got 2 barbecue spots. In Finland, this is normal. Well, in Finland, of course, everything is done on a different level. But for Russia, this is an absolutely unique situation. Tomsk is a very cool city. I imagine that if everything here could be restored, fixed, if these buildings could be repaired, it would become an amazing city. People from all over the world would come here, because there are very few places that have preserved so many wooden buildings. And not just wooden buildings, but high-quality ones, with very beautiful window frames. We're just walking around, we go into the first house we see, and it has shutters, beautiful carved frames, the windows, the little courtyard. There are only a handful of buildings like this left. The Scandinavian countries are probably top in the world when it comes to preserving wooden historical heritage. They treasure all those houses. But everything there is super primitive. There is nothing like this beauty there. If a house like this appeared somewhere in Sweden or Norway, it would be the most beautiful house in the country. They would treat it with such care, dusting off every little carved detail. But here you see it's all collapsing. The whole house is leaning, and it's unclear how it's even still standing. Local residents don't understand the potential they have at all. They see this priceless heritage as rotten shacks that are only good enough to be chopped into firewood. The only use they imagine is tearing it down to build a 25-story prefab tower. And this'll hurt, but it's the truth, because they got this talentless, disgusting embankment built for just an absurd amount of money. With that money, Tomsk could have restored 100 buildings, basically all the wooden houses that urgently need saving. And imagine, instead of this slab of granite, this granite monument to incompetence, they'd have 100 restored beautiful buildings. Tomsk would be transformed.
Actually, most likely the people who provided the funding and the ones who worked on these projects wanted to do something good, something useful for the city. Maybe they're from here, maybe they know someone here. They wanted to help the city become better. But because of this idiocy, they just buried their money and threw it away.
I'm sure that if these millions had been spent not on this stupid embankment, but on restoring the wooden heritage, people from all over the world would flock here. You could build an international airport in Tomsk. There would be flights Paris-Tomsk, Beijing-Tomsk, New York-Tomsk.
Stockholm-Tomsk.
Yes, for sure. Tourists would be coming from everywhere. Small businesses would grow. The city would flourish, but for that, you need a competent mayor. You absolutely cannot tolerate this. It's complete bullshit. I urge all residents of Tomsk to be outraged and not tolerate what is happening in some parts of your city.